I am a human rights officer with the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission, and I'm on a secondment with the Legal Information Society of Nova Scotia to coordinate their sexual harassment in the workplace project. And I'm joined by HeatherDe Romilly, our executive director, and we're going to talk to you a little bit about our very quick shift to an online training platform when COVID hit and changed the world quite radically. So Hannah very kindly is going to flip through the slides. So Hannah, would you go to the next slide, please? Technology. So as is the case with many of you attending, I'm sure, our organization has a federally funded sexual harassment in the workplace project. A cornerstone of our project is education, as I'm sure it is with most of the projects. Over the past year or so, we've assembled a roster of lawyers across Nova Scotia who are able to provide free legal advice up to 4 hours for complainants who've experienced workplace sexual harassment. We felt very strongly at the beginning of the project that we wanted to provide these lawyers with a very robust training on various issues such as trauma-informed practice, alternative dispute resolution, and other subject matter pertinent to sexual harassment complaints. And so we organized a day-and-a-half training session in person, it was the plan, which was to occur on March 30th and 31st of this year. COVID hit just at that time, and we very quickly had to shift to transforming that day-and-a-half training session to a series of online trainings. This was a very new experience for us, and you know, Heather and I don't claim to be experts on online training, but we're here today to share with you what we learned through, you know, having to make that quick pivot, and you know, some do's and don'ts that we learned through that trial by fire, so to speak. So Hannah, if you could flip to the next slide. So our lawyers had been pretty keen on the planned in-person session. You know, we had various subject matter experts, and so it was a bit of a shock to have to suddenly change that to an online format. You know, we worried about some issues like the loss of the interactive nature of having that, you know, lovely session being all together. We had a successful transition, though, I would say. We received generally very positive feedback from the lawyers who completed the training. You know, some of them were at first disappointed that we couldn't gather, but I think that there are some real pros to having the online format, in the sense that, you know, we now have a repository of trainings that can be used in the future for any lawyers who come onto the service at this point, who join in future times. So, you know, you might see my cat in the background. That's one of the joys of online training these days. In my my segment of our online training for lawyers, one of my cats makes a very serious appearance, which I guess adds a bit of joy to it. Anyway, I was saying, so we moved the training online. And you know, our intention in doing that, we had to make that decision very quickly, as we, you know, all of our project, that in the lawyer referral service in particular, depended upon the lawyers receiving that training so that we could successfully and quickly launch the program, to which would benefit many users, many individuals in Nova Scotia who could make use of that service. So we wanted to do it as quickly as possible by whatever means necessary. Hannah, if you could move the next slide. And so we moved it online. We had all our speakers record themselves. We gave them a series of tips and guidelines to go by. These are all professionals, so, you know, in a lot of ways it's a matter of common sense. A day-and-a-half long training session, you don't want to take that and duplicate that exactly online, because of course that's going to make people tune out. We wanted to capture some of the vibrancy of the training that we planned, while making up for the lack of interactive nature in other ways. So we asked our speakers to provide condensed versions of their sessions. So, you know, most of the trainings that we've had have been an hour long or less, so as to keep people's attention span. And because we lost the usefulness of the interactive nature, we created these brief surveys at the end of each session where users could submit questions to. We collected those questions and then sent them to their respective trainer and gathered all the answers so that they could be put online too, so that those too would be captured as information that all of our lawyers could access. And so everyone could benefit from those questions that were asked. So we put it all online. LISNS has a WordPress-based website, which is relatively user-friendly, and we have what's called a learning management system. It's open source. It's no additional cost, and it has a very nice format. So it was very conducive to putting our training online. You can cycle through the training videos very easily. It's visually quite pleasing. So, you know, I would encourage anybody attending today to go and have a browse through our website and access the lawyer referral training. As it is, you know, like I said, there's no additional cost, and it is quite a good system for housing this kind of platform, this kind of training tools. Hannah, next slide, please. So in pivoting very quickly over, I think, about a 3-week period to transforming our training to an online format, we relied on some outside experts who had been part of the LISNS team before, had worked with us on various other projects, and we enlisted their help in making that quick shift. So we relied on the help of a graphic designer, a curriculum consultant, and our steadfast web technician to make that quick shift. I mention all of these things because we found those individuals quite useful. Like you know, it's great to record a video in your home office and put it online, but in order to really give it that unified feel and make it engaging, you know, we really relied on these experts to help us out. Our graphic designer in particular was able to give a very unified feel to the training videos, and that added a professionalism, which maybe I destroyed by having my cat in the video, but such is life. Hannah, if you could switch forward one more, please. So that's a screenshot of what our training page, the home page, the landing page for our training looks like. We have the course, which launches when you click on that. And then we have an advertisement there for training that is upcoming. So as is the case with all of us, I imagine, you know, our future plan is solely to have our training online. LISNS is looking at developing this fall some trainings that are focused on employers, on educating them about sexual harassment in the workplace. And so we're learning from our lawyer referral training videos and developing some best practices for what to do when we record those video trainings. Next slide, please. So, you know, like I said, we received very positive feedback, and I would say that that's because we had experts enlisted already, and so the training videos are quite engaging. In particular, the trauma-informed training video was something that our lawyers were very delighted to receive and provided very good feedback. The online training works because you know, the videos were visually engaging. We have a plain language expert on our team, and she was able to provide some guidance in terms of communication style. As one thing I would say is that when you're making that shift to an online training as opposed to in person, it's really pivotal to use plain language to be able to describe concepts in simple ways for your listeners, because there isn't really that opportunity for question asking and clarification. I think I'm about at my time, so I'll flip to the next slide, and then I'm going to hand it over to Heather. Just to summarize or to add one more point, the one thing that I really wish we had the time to do is to make some of our training videos more engaging. We're now looking at the prospect of having some short video animations embedded in some of our future training videos. We're adding on to the repository that we've already built. So we're creating now a training session on for lawyers on working with trans and non-binary clients, because we feel like that's pivotal, and also a training session on incorporating restorative approaches into your practice. And so we're looking at breaking up some of those trainings by having these short, engaging video animations as a way to make viewers more interested and to make some of the concepts more engaging for viewers who might have different learning styles. So Heather's going to speak now about one of our other projects that, that now is also online in terms of the training session. Heather, I think your mic might be off.
Unmuting. There we are. Okay, you can hear me. And I just want to tell everybody I'm dressed up and I'm so looking forward to joining by video. And so anyway, my camera's not working. So I just want to say thank you for joining. And just quickly to pick up on what Allison has shared, I think it is really important to think about that when you're doing it online, you don't have the benefit of someone interacting directly with people. You need to make the training as interesting as possible, and really the interactive elements are critical. So for the lawyers, it was fine to be giving them basic information provision, but for all of our other training, especially like looking at the public, we're really looking at that use of video animation, the graphic design, and trying to keep things fairly short and pithy. So Hannah, the next slide, please. And so just in terms of what I would say the key things to focus on are to make it very inviting, to know your audience, to look at it as being as interactive as possible, and to invest in video animation. And I think there's some wonderful people doing great work at very reasonable rates across the country. And when I mentioned about short and pithy, and it needs to be smart so that your audience really feels like they're engaged in it and they want to be watching more, not sort of like, oh, how much longer is this going to go? And the plain language makes all the difference in terms of people really getting it and keeping it really crisp. So those are really key elements that we're incorporating in all of our online training. So the next slide, Hannah, please. And so just to let you know, our LMS system, it looks like this. And I guess the other part of it that we've just sort of learned from doing our Senior Navigator online training, which we've just launched this past week, is that it's really important that you have to also have give people a basic orientation to any online system you're working with, because it isn't necessarily intuitive, even though they're really basic. So that's something that we've been like working with and recognizing. And as I say, we have a pilot ongoing, so we're looking forward to getting feedback in terms of how well we've finessed that. So next slide, Hannah. And so just in terms of the benefits, certainly with the online, being accessible, you know, to people when it's good for them, that you do have this archive so you can refer back to it and you can easily upload new content. So certainly really cost effective, and it's a great way to make use of your resources. And one of the things I realized after we did have to move online quickly for our LRS was that it would have taken us a lot more time and money than I had anticipated to then take what we were going to video everybody in person, and then we had envisioned just putting that online, but it doesn't work like that. so that's sort of a really good lesson learned throughout it, that you have to kind of, we suggest any online training, first you want to have your experts prepare it as if it were an in-person, and then you want to bring all of your kind of expertise together, like those video animators, plain language, your web people, and think about what are you trying to convey, and then do the online and adapt it. So that's one of the things that we've learned. Next. And so just in terms of what is absolutely critical, the need for a project outline. So sort of a basic outline of all the key content. And then we found curriculum mapping very helpful, and we have a hard copy document we can share. And basically it was shared in a Google Doc so that everybody on the team could be referring back to the same reference points. And basically that helped our web person know exactly what to put where, and it really, really facilitated the whole process, and it ended up not being overwhelming. And as I remind you, we are a really small organization, so it was important when we were working with this big team that we were able to be able to do this as efficiently as possible. And next slide, Hannah. Please, thank you. And then, so I mentioned the shared Google Drive and weekly team meetings by, we were using Skype, but Zoom, and basically the team getting together as needed to ensure that everything was on track and that there were good updates and ongoing communication. And the next slide, please. And some of the things that we also found, what worked really well is, I'm sure as many of our PLEAC group members have excellent existing materials and content. So we found that for our Senior Legal Information Navigator project, where we're basically training community volunteers to help people make a personal directive, will, or power of attorney using our apps, that we have a lot of really great information, like what's the difference between legal information and legal advice. So in terms of being able to take those materials and adapt to them, that's a real benefit. So being able to look through your library and inventory of information, which you may already have on your website, that's a really helpful approach. And then using a variety of learning aids. So with our learning management system, you can easily incorporate videos, handouts, PDF quizzes. It really does accommodate all learning styles. And next slide, please. And so what we would just say in terms of even the Seniors Navigator project, really important to involve your plain language editor right from the beginning, and have an agreed upon editing and revision process for content so that it makes that manageable, and meet with the entire project team to make sure that at the outset everybody's clear on deliverables, timelines, and then make sure that you do your best to stick to it, but that you also build in flexibility. And so next slide, please. And then some of these key tips, and we're almost finished here, but thinking about your learners, that you really want to consider what you're trying to do from the perspective of who you're trying to provide the information to and what you want them to take away from it. So as a result, everything that you're doing needs to be with the view of not so much what am I trying to communicate, but what do I want the people who are watching this to learn, and how are they best going to do that? And we found it helpful with our sexual harassment project to create some various personas, and then to think about like what are the characteristics of those learners, and how can we respond to that. And so next slide, please. And then we have some really great bookmarks we developed, and thanks to Allison, just in terms of making sure that you're representing kind of diversity in terms of reaching out to audiences, and particularly when you're trying to engage with the public. And so I think our last slide is the next one. And just in terms of thinking about if you have particular learning needs, if you're writing for that group and you're making it really plain language, the extra explanations that you provide are going to help everybody. So even lawyers, we find, appreciate plain language. They don't realize it at the time. So it's just really, really helpful to focus on who it is you're trying to reach, write for them, make sure it's plain language, and it's going to be good for everybody. And I think the next one may be our last slide, Hannah. And making sure that you do really stick true to that, we say writing for the 13-year-old, and making sure that you make it as short and pithy as possible, because a lot of information, it's really daunting to a lot of people. So really thinking about how it's presented in the online is critical, because you don't have someone there to make up for that gap. And I think that's it. Yeah, so we're at the end, and I hope we're on time there, and thank you very much, and we're happy to take questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Heather and Allison. I really appreciate it. I'm actually just noticing that we've lost Jeanne, our second panelist, which I think she was messaging me. She was having some connectivity issues. So hopefully I'm just getting in touch with her now to try to get her back and see how she can kind of resolve that. But in the meantime, obviously not to waste any time, if it's okay, if Nick and Aman, if you wanted to kind of jump in and as the second panelist instead. Oh, or Jeanne has maybe joined us. I'm not sure. Guys, this is kind of the transition, what we're dealing with our with going online. So this is a perfect example with some things that might can kind of go a little bit differently. So let me just see, Jeanne, let me know if you were able to connect. If not, let me see here. There we go. 1 second. Okay, let me just see. Sorry, we're having just a little bit of issues here. Okay, Nick, Aman, you both have the audio. Jeanne, you have audio? Are you okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry, guys, for the bump. But Jeanne, are you okay to go next?
I can try, but I'm not sure that it will work. I think maybe if someone can go before and I can go next. I can try just to make sure that it works because...
Yes, no problem.
Okay, thanks.
No problem, Jeanne, no problem. So Aman and Nick, go ahead if you guys want. Sorry about the sorry about that. Okay, go ahead, guys, whenever you're ready.
I think is Aman still muted?
Okay, there we go. I should be on now. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, so I'll just share our presentation. I think, can I need a permission to do that? Fantastic. I hope everyone can see it. So Hannah asked Nick and I to speak about some videos and social media that we had created for our workplace sexual harassment project. So we'll start off just by introducing ourselves. So my name is Aman Dhillon, and I'm a staff lawyer at the Community Legal Clinic for Simcoe, Haliburton, and Kawartha Lakes. And I'm one of the staff members that's been assisting with the workplace sexual harassment project at our office. And my pronouns are she and her.
Want me to go? So hi, everyone. My name is Nick Rodrigo. Pronouns are he and his. I joined the clinic last September as a graphic designer and a support worker on the workplace sexual harassment project.
Fantastic. So we are one of several community legal clinics in Ontario that received funding and have been working on the workplace sexual harassment project. When COVID started, we had to reevaluate our strategy at the clinic for doing outreach. So we were taking some time to think about the medium and the message for our online strategy. In order to understand why we took the approach we did, you have to understand a bit about our community that we serve. So we have a lot of rural folks who have limited access to good internet, to technology and technical literacy. So that informed the approach we took to some of our online resources. So folks might be familiar, there's different types of online content. So when we were deciding which route to take, we had to decide between static content, which basically stays the same, and interactive content, which changes based on user input. So examples of static content are social media profiles or videos. Even though the feed on your social media profile can change, it's still considered static because a profile stays the same. Same with video. As long as the videos aren't being adjusted, it's considered static. There's pros to using static content. It's relatively cost-effective. It's relatively easy to use, and it's easier to distribute because there isn't too much changing. And lastly, it's a one-way type of communication, which, although you are looking for engagement online, it can be a bit tricky when you're dealing with legal information because you want to protect confidentiality, you don't want to create phantom clients, and you just want to have control over the message. It can take a lot of resources to manage, say, comment sections of your social media platforms, and things can get quite ugly. So we decided for the most part to disable the comments of our videos where appropriate, just so we could control some of the messaging that was going out there. So we decided to opt for static content in the form of videos. We have done some interactive content like Zoom webinars where we're teaching folks about workplace sexual harassment, their legal rights, and what to do. But in our experience, like for example, I did one this morning, they're usually attended by community partners and trusted intermediaries. And these aren't things that our clients are necessarily accessing. So if our clients are accessing our materials, we want the message to be very simple and very clear that if you have a concern about workplace sexual harassment, please contact us. We don't want folks self-screening or talking themselves out of getting help because they're second guessing what they experienced may or may not be workplace sexual harassment. So during quarantine, we asked Nick to focus on creating some videos for this project, and he did a great job. I'll turn it over to Nick so he can talk a bit about the technical sides and some different factors we considered when creating our videos.
Great, thank you, Aman. So, right, once we had decided on the medium, video, there were some further factors to consider. As for the type of video we decided to produce, animation and live action were both considered. But one advantage to animation was how suitable it could be for sensitive topics. Real life experiences don't need to be directly portrayed or shown through characters when you animate. Rather, they can be symbolically represented through, say, changing colors, moving objects, transforming shapes. And that was the approach in our first video. Animated maple leaves that represented people would turn gray or shrink or begin to fall as the narrator talked about the negative effects of workplace sexual harassment. Another reason why animation was a good choice was how easy it would be to manage in comparison to live action. There's no need to manage cameras, lighting, costuming, or acting, which is especially helpful during quarantine. You just need an animator and a computer, and perhaps a voice actor. Not to say that it's all easy, but you know, right now it is, that part is easier to manage than having a group of people trying to come together and act in front of a camera together. Further, you can choose to feature a neutral or diverse cast. For our second video, we created an animation featuring medieval knights and various creatures which masked portrayals of gender or ethnicity. As a result, any viewer can insert themselves into the subject matter. We have discussed portraying diverse identities in future videos. One consideration is aiming for representation and inclusion while avoiding typecasting. For instance, you wouldn't want to only create content with a particular gender identity as a victim of sexual harassment, because that might enforce assumptions that only certain gender identities experience workplace sexual harassment. And as mentioned, creating animated videos can be relatively low cost. There are many animation programs that are even, you can even download them for free. One such program is called Doodly. We used it for part of our first video. It animates cartoon or realistic hands to write or draw images in real time. This style of video, often referred to as whiteboard animation, offers a nice balance of information and visual engagement. You can display your main points in text while having visual supports for your message. Also, a whiteboard background can be switched out for a blackboard, a green board, or a custom color in Doodly. The free version of Doodly has a library of images that the animated hands are programmed to draw. Paying a one-time fee will grant access to an ever-increasing library of images, but you can also import your own images. In the app, you'll just need to trace out a path for the animated hand to follow when it is drawing your image, or you can simply have your whole image sort of fade in or pop into view on the screen. Another clinic we're aware of, the one in Peterborough here in Ontario, has also created videos using Powtoon, which is another free service.
So once we had Nick create the videos, we shared them through our different contact networks and uploaded them onto our different social media platforms. Before starting the project, we already had Facebook and Twitter accounts. However, we were looking into broadening our social media presence. So Nick created YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok accounts for our clinic. As many folks already know, YouTube is a great platform for hosting videos. You can share and embed links quite easily. We created a TikTok account because we felt that more young folks were using this over traditional social media platforms. Going forward, we'll have to reconsider whether or not we're going to be using this because there have been concerns about data privacy, as a lot of folks already know. And Instagram has recently launched a feature called Reels, which is a pretty similar service to TikTok. So we might take a look at that. In June and July, we had about almost 550 page views across our different social media platforms. And that's not just videos. Sometimes we're posting other information about the project. But so far, we're quite happy with how things are going. We plan on pushing our content further during the fall outreach season. We're pretty excited about all the great work Nick is doing, and we're planning some future videos. I'm noticing that we might be a bit tight for time, but we had posted the 2 links to videos we have already created and have available online. And if there was time, we were going to watch one of the shorter ones, but I think I'll leave that and just put the links up there. You're welcome to check out our YouTube channel, and the videos are hosted there, and I can share these links with Hannah if the participants want them sent out later.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. I can absolutely share those links with everyone afterwards, as well as the recording of this webinar and any other links, as well as LISNS PowerPoint presentation, as well as yours, Aman and Nick as well. So that's super helpful. Thank you very much for that. I think now we're gonna go to Jeanne. Jeanne, are you able to tune in? Can you hear me?
Yes, so now I'm with my cell phone, so
okay,
it should work.
Perfect. Okay.
Sorry for that. I don't know what happened. It's the first time that something like that happened to me, so I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. Go right ahead, Jeanne, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so for those who don't know about the Migrant Workers Center, so we are a nonprofit organization dedicated to providing legal advocacy for migrant workers in BC. So we have an office in Vancouver, but we have a province-wide mandate. On a day-to-day basis, the organization provides pro bono legal information, summary advice, and full legal representation in the areas of employment law and immigration law to a clientele of vulnerable, mainly female migrant workers. So I'm a legal advocate for MWC. So I'm working on a specific program, and we have a partnership with ISS of BC. So the program is called the Respect at Work Legal Clinic. And so we provide legal advice to newcomers who have faced workplace sexual harassment, while most MWC programs and services are for migrant workers. The Respect at Work project is open to all newcomers to Canada, regardless of immigration status. So some of the challenges we have been facing since COVID-19, I think like all organizations, it has been very hard for MWC to promote and work on this project. So we know that that sexual harassment is still a very sensitive topic. And I think for us specifically, because we focus on newcomers, And we know that they may face additional barriers, obstacles to come forward, for example, language barriers, cultural barriers. They might not be familiar with the legal Canadian system. They may be isolated. So, and also sexual harassment, as I mentioned, it's a very sensitive topic, and for many newcomers, it's very hard to talk about this issue. So, I would say, and also, I think we are a small organization, so we don't have a communication team. We are lawyers and legal advocates. So I think for us, it has been it's been a challenge for us to promote, still working efficiently on this project and making sure that our clients know that they can reach us, they can contact us despite of COVID-19, because right now, for example, our office is closed and we're not meeting with clients face-to-face in person. But I would say one of our strengths in that project is that we have a strategic partnership. So as I was mentioning, so we are working with ISS of BC. So ISS of BC is one of the largest settlement agencies in Canada with 18 offices across the province of BC. Before our work, before COVID-19, we were giving workshops. So an important component of our project was the legal education component. And so we were giving workshops in person to staff and who works in organizations who provide services for newcomers. So since COVID, all of our workshops are virtual now. And what I can mention is that I think what was a surprise for us is that actually since COVID-19, I think we've been giving even more workshops than before. I think there is a demand and needs for workshops since COVID-19. I think for people it's also easier to, what I realized is that it's easier for them to attend workshops because they can stay home, they can do it from home, there's more flexibility. And so I think that's a positive aspect. So one of an example I can give with the workshops, so as I mentioned, so now all of our workshops are webinars, so are online. And we were giving, so we use our partnerships with ISS of BC to create workshops for ESL students, because ISS of BC provide English courses for newcomers. And so that I can say that was a success. So I think but it also requested from us to be flexible and adapt our workshops to, so obviously to the audience. So for example, simplify the vocabulary, provide slides in advance, so making sure that people can understand, and the teacher can maybe review the vocabulary with the students to make sure that they understand the workshop. I think the fact that also students know each other were also an asset, because they were able to talk freely about the topic, even if it's a sensitive topic. And so we were really trying to make sure that we can accommodate our audience and make sure that they can understand and learn from the workshop. So another action that we took since COVID-19 was that we created a Twitter account and a Facebook page specifically for the project, and we developed a social media strategy. So as I mentioned, I think the challenge was that for us, I'm a legal advocate and I don't have an expertise in communication. So what we are trying is also to work with our partners to make sure that we can learn from them. We can also use their expertise to promote our project, to use social media efficiently. And also, so we are trying to work and create new partnerships with other new organizations who works with newcomers. So that's what I can say about what we were doing.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jeanne. I really appreciate that. And thank you I'm glad that we were able to have you here despite our
Yes.
Thank you so much. That's great. So actually, yeah.
Thank you. I hope I was clear. I don't know, because that's for me the first time that I use my phone to give a presentation. So I hope
that's perfect. I know it's not ideal, but we heard you loud and clear. Yeah, thumbs up. So thank you so much, Jeanne. I appreciate it. So we actually hit a perfect time here. We have this was like perfect timing. So we're going to go ahead and do a sort of a brief Q&A session for the time that we have left over here. And we do have a few questions, and maybe I'll actually go backwards from sort of starting off with Jeanne in any case, and moving forward back to, and then Heather, we can see you now. That's exciting. Okay, great. So Jeanne, I'm just going to start off with you just because you just finished, but we just have one question I can see here. And please, everyone, feel free, if you have any other questions, the Q&A is open, so feel free to go ahead and send your questions. We'll get to as many as we can. So Jeanne, my first question that I see here is, do you use translators?
That's a good question. So we've been using translators sometimes, actually. So we are being giving the workshops in other languages, because I also speak 2 other languages. So I've been, for example, giving the workshop in French and Spanish. So I think it was easier to give directly the workshop in the language and not to use translators. But we also use translators for other, I would say, other projects that we've been working. And I think the best, so for sure, it's hard to find and maybe expensive to find experts, translators. So we are always trying to find someone who can translate for us and be able to also reach a vast population. So because obviously we work with newcomers and many of our clients don't speak English, but I think this is possible, and we have been we gave some presentation with translators online.
Okay.
It just take more time to do the presentation.
Perfect. And I think just one other question, Jeanne, for you before I move on to the next person is just any quick tip for presenting the topic to an immigrant community? Any quick tip on that?
Yeah, I think it was to keep it simple. I think to make sure we know the community we're presenting, because and make them comfortable, make sure, for example, that they can be, for example, an interactive workshop. It's always better when people can ask questions and can feel that they can ask questions and we can start a conversation. But I can say that I've been surprised at how the interest the workshop we've been doing. There were many questions. Usually what we have done also is that we also added case studies at the end of our workshop, so people can ask, can share their thoughts, and create kind of a debate about the cases. And I think that has been very successful with newcomers.
Great. Okay, that's a great answer. Thank you, Jeanne. I'm just going to move over for the sake of time. I'm going to just switch to Nick and Aman. We just have a question here that I posted briefly in the chat just because it kind of came from elsewhere. But the question is, what is the most user-friendly media or video platform for someone that is not very tech savvy and may not have the resources to outsource?
Great. I'd say that Doodly, the one that we used for our first video, is very user-friendly, especially for the results that it gives you. The whiteboard animation style is very modern and very popular. Pretty much, yeah, once you open Doodly, you can open up a new video project. You'll see the blank canvas of your video. And then just to the left of that video, there's different objects that you can drag and drop and move around on the video. These different objects are broken down into characters, environmental details, text boxes that you can write into, and you can sort of hover over the objects once they're on your video, and you can sort of choose some settings, you know, how long you want them to be on the screen, how long you want them to be on the screen before the next object comes on, and you can pretty much create and export a whole video just from within the Doodly app. It also has some free, non-copyrighted free music that you can use. And again, you can import your own images, and you might be able to do it for music as well. I think I'd have to double check on that.
Great. Okay. That's great. Perfect. Okay, so I think right now we're just going to move over to Allison and Heather. Feel free. These questions are more directed to you guys. So I think the first question was actually, what is the name of the LMS?
Sorry, I was here just, my apologies, I was here answering one of the chat questions on the plain language. So the learning management system, that's what it's called. It is just, and we can send more details, but our web tech person basically said that is the name, the LMS, the learning management system, and it's used like extensively by governments and universities. So it is, we'll be able to, we'll follow up, Hannah, and give you sort of any additional detail, but my understanding is that anyway, that's sort of how Jesse Williams, our IT person, has sort of just referred to it for our purposes. And
perfect. And I think Dave, I have a sort of a little comment from Dave Petit that just says that the LMS plugin is called Learn Dash, in case that helps.
Yes, that's it. Listen, thank you, Dave. As you can see, we love the technology, but are not the technical experts. And is it, are we able to speak to the PowerPoint recording question? Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I was going to ask that one next.
I'm sorry, Hannah. Yeah.
No.
You go ahead. No, you asked the question.
So yeah, so everyone can sort of see it just in case it's, so do you use PowerPoint recording to create video presentations? Can you recommend how to create video other than with Zoom? That's the question from Shirley.
Okay, so just to let you know that in terms of, so we have basically two types of video animation, and we have an excellent video animation design expert, and he actually works very closely with our IT person. So they knew each other, like our IT person has worked with us for over a decade, and Dean has, our video animation person, has done like our web design, what have you. And so it's really nice is that Dean has a really great understanding of our work. So he's been able to bring a lot of our material to life through video animation, which and then he works closely with our plain language expert. And so together, they come up with even, you know, like sort of wonderful ideas that we wouldn't otherwise perhaps think of ourselves. And they're thinking of it, looking at it through a different lens. And he's so reasonable. Like, I just have to say, the people we work with, they're excellent. but they have recognized that we're a not-for-profit, and they have been so reasonable in their billing, and at times, you know, have worked with us almost for free when we've been in really difficult situations. So I have to say we're really delighted that we have funding to pay them fair market value, but it's been amazingly cost effective. And so then we've had actually one of the expert lawyers on our sexual harassment project, who's also done our small claims court navigator work, and he is very skilled and gifted, you might say, and has done the actual video production where it has involved a combination of, you might say, real people and some video animation. And so he has, if you go on our sexual harassment in the workplace training, he's actually prepared the video that is, you might say, the front and center video for the entire initiative. And then similarly for our senior navigator project. And so he again has been very cost effective. And then he's been able to sort of have access to Jeanne, our video animation person. So they work closely together, and they've made sure that we have similar branded look then across our videos for like what the intros look like, what they close, so that our LISNS logo is there, and music, what have you. So that's really made a huge difference in terms of having people who also know what they're doing. So I guess what I would say is critical, like with the lawyer, he's really knowledgeable about the content. And I think that makes a big difference, because we've talked to people, you know, who purport to be, let's say, videographers or what have you, but they don't add a lot of value because we're almost having to do all of the work. So what we've been able to do is get creative design people who really understand the nature of our work. And I would just say, like our plain language expert, she was formerly a senior government communications person, and she worked with us for free for a kind of a number of initiatives. And now she's left government, kind of retired, but she's young retired, and so she's doing the work privately. And I can only tell you, she's a delight. And I would anyway happy to share contact information for her, because she's just wonderful. And her husband is a judge, and so she's not a lawyer, but she's really good insights into sort of everything legal, and has a wonderful perspective, but a really lovely person who's very interested in access to justice. So she adds tremendous value.
That's great. I was actually just going to add, we have a few minutes left, but there is another question that I'm actually going to give sort of to everyone, and it kind of leads from Heather, what you've been saying in how do you find a good web designer and what qualities did you require? So you kind of touched on that, Heather, but if Nick or Aman have anything to add, or Jeanne or anything like that, please feel free. So what qualities do you require for a good web designer?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, if you'd like to go ahead, please do.
Well, I was just going to say what we have found with our Jesse Williams. He is, you might say, an independent person who provides support to different clients, but he's really responsive. He understands our business. He takes the time to understand kind of who we're trying to reach, and understand then what the web presence needs to be. So I just think you need to have somebody who also is kind of there with you throughout the duration. So Jesse treats his clients like as if they're all important, you might say, and you have ready access. He's very reasonably priced, and he's just, he knows what he's doing, and he doesn't try to sell expensive stuff. So I think that's the other thing, having somebody who just really seems to be able to add value, and that you again are not the one who's doing all the work, that they can sort of help you find solutions that are reasonable, and that they stand behind their work. That's the other thing I would say.
Great. Aman, you wanted to add anything to that?
Yes, just to echo what Heather said, I think having an understanding of our type of work is very important. But when we were looking for someone to come on as a project assistant, we wanted it to be kind of 50-50. Like design was key, and some of the qualifications we were looking for actually was trying to find the job posting while we were answering some of the other questions to get ready for this. But we had asked for a demonstrated commitment to social justice and equity, experience working with Indigenous community members and other vulnerable groups, and understanding and experience working for access, equity, inclusion, and community programs. And then on top of that, we asked for some design background, so graphic design, communication skills, experience with social media, and all of that. And we were so fortunate to find Nick to come on board, who had all these great qualities through one of our local education programs. So Nick is quite local and has an understanding of our community as well and our community needs. So going to a design school or a design program really worked out for us. And we were looking for someone who could bring something new to our project. So I'm going to age myself here, but I don't really have a sound understanding of what young folks are into. So having someone young to come on board to help us with our social media strategy was really key. And that worked out well. Some other things that we had considered was that some design programs require students to do some project work. So if you're just looking for a one-off, you can see what schools have projects that require something be done by certain timelines. For example, we had received some information that certain courses were requiring students to do a project for a not-for-profit. So one piece of design work was part of their course credit. So we were considering accessing that, but with the funds through this project, we were able to hire someone to do it for us.
Okay, that's great. That's great. I think we might have just one quick answer. If Allison or Heather, you can just do a very quick answer to this one in the last minute that we have here. And it's, what was your budget for creating the online learning? Ballpark is fine. That's from Laura Bird.
And just in terms, well, we spent our entire first year budget. So just in terms of, I don't know how everybody else was set up, but because we basically ended up having a project team of 15 at the end of the day, and that included a videographer, what have you. And so we spent $497,000 as the whole project, and that included 2 project staff salaries. So in terms of like the online training was relatively cost effective. I think what one has to look at is what's the content that you're developing, and so who are the experts who you have to retain to write that content, to bring, you might say, to just have your baseline content, and then bringing in your experts to help bring it to life. So, I mean, we could definitely, you don't need $497,000, not at all. And so just to give people an idea, with our Senior Navigator project, for which we do have project funding, but it's sort of bringing together similar expertise, but using LISNS, you might say, materials. We're doing that within about like $20,000. So I guess what I would just say is it really depends upon how much new content you need to develop and who do you need to bring into the fold. And we've never had the luxury. So this is the first time we've had a project that afforded us the funding to really bring the right people in. But you might say we weren't paying enormous sums of money for any particular thing. It was really the size of the team and the scope. And it ended up informing our understanding of online training. But that is, as you probably gathered, was almost it wasn't our goal, because when we started out, we were looking at it all being in person. So if we had known that we were developing for online, it probably would have been somewhat different, but we're happy, you might say, with the outcome. So I'm really happy to share. We're very open, you might say, about you might say the budget and what have you. So I'm happy to talk to anybody. They're welcome to follow up with me, and I would have more discussion. But I guess all I'm going to make the comment again is knowing who you're working with is critical, because There are consultants who I'm sure are excellent, and they cost a lot of money, the $1,500 a day types. And we've been fortunate that we've had excellent people who have been working at really reasonable rates and have not inflated them because they knew we had the project funding. So we were able to do that much more. And it's benefited all of our lines of business. That's the other thing that I would say. So anyway, I'll stop talking.
That's great. No, thank you so much, Heather. No, that's a great answer. I appreciate it. And I think all the information, you know, either links that the panelists here have shared with me, the presentations, just to reiterate, as well as the recording and everything, I'm happy to send that to everybody after the fact to take a look. And I can also send the contact information for our panelists today in case anyone has another afterthought kind of question that they want to send directly their way. PLEAC's website, we are close to sort of putting up that directory of everyone's contact information for the SHW project. So it will be a little bit easier to reach out with any questions or for better information sharing moving forward. But that's sort of our time. I just want to thank you all so much for joining us. I want to thank our lovely presenters for all their hard work and great input on this topic today. We hope that the information I guess shared today was helpful to you, and we can always sort of bring this up again and sort of expand on this as we move forward through our projects. And thank you for all your lovely questions as well. And with that, I will say have a safe rest of the week, and bye for now. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you
so much.
Hannah.
Bye.